Hey, so I taught guitar for about 10 years, and I thought it might be interesting for some of you to see the things I think are good ideas when you're teaching beginners, intermediate, advanced students, and what kind of things I learned, and yeah, maybe you're starting off as a teacher yourself, so this could be useful. Maybe you're a student and you're just kind of curious as what the thought process is on the other side. Um, so I thought I'd start with a lesson about teaching beginners because beginners are going to be kind of the bulk of your tuition most of the time. So um, basically I was teaching mostly through music schools, so at the start of every term um, I'd get new students to fill any gaps, and most of those are going to be beginners. Um, Over time, what tends to happen is more motivated students stay on, and so the average level of your students increases as you keep teaching. And then occasionally very advanced students will leave because they're going to music at university, or they're just moving country or something. Or maybe you think that they've learned everything they can from you and they should move on to a different teacher. So I'd say about half your students will be beginners most of the time. And when you're a new teacher, that's going to be more. So my first tip would be whenever you're teaching a brand new guitar player, what you really want to do first and foremost is build enthusiasm. So you need to make learning the guitar fun, or they're not going to do it, right? And then you're not a very good teacher. So so that depends on the student, right? So every now and again you're going to have someone walk in and they're wearing a Guns N' Roses t-shirt and you'll be like, okay, right, I know what to teach you. But for a lot of students, you kind of have to provide a little bit of direction. So you might ask, what's your favorite music? And then you might have to work out how you're going to either build material to lead towards that music if it's too difficult for a beginner, or you might just know how to play it and you can get started from there, which is great. A lot of people just kind of want to play guitar. They don't really care what they learn, so you got to be prepared for that as well. And so it's a really good idea to just kind of know a few easy arrangements of really popular music at the time. And people really want to be going away from their first lesson playing something that's recognizable and it sounds like music. So not like a C major scale. That's shit. Don't send someone home with that. Send them home with something like something they can, play, right? So the first week I played guitar, it was just Seven Nation Army over and over again, and I was playing it wrong. But I still had a lot of fun when I got here, right? So it must have worked in some level. So tip number one is build enthusiasm. Okay, number two, you're going to have to simplify things a lot. And you might not realize just how good at guitar you are, right? Guitar players, we're very insecure, right? But if you try turning your guitar the other way around and then trying to play something recognizable, you'll find that it's actually very difficult. There you go. So obviously I've improved at playing guitar the normal way around for me. So yeah, beginners are going to have a lot more trouble with the instrument than you might expect. And so it's a really good idea to do stuff like, if you can, move songs into a different key so they're easier. You can use more open strings, or perhaps you can make so the chord voicings lead more naturally into one another. So you might get something like With or Without You by U2. And you can see that these chord voicings require minimal movement between each chord, which really helps. Remember, they're going to really struggle getting one finger onto one fret to make a usable sound, so moving like 3 or 4 fingers at once, not going to happen. And just forget about bar chords, right? Completely forget about them. I've heard of people going to their first guitar lesson and the guitar teacher expecting them to be able to play a B major bar chord. No, never going to happen. Don't do it. and make sure everything you're planning to teach has been arranged to be as simple as possible. And you can make a few sacrifices here and there, changing rhythms or chord voicings, just to make it easier. If they find it too easy, that's great, then you can show them the proper version afterwards. But it should start as easy as possible. You want to get them on the on-ramp, right? Get them warmed up, get their fingers moving. You're going to have to build the strength and dexterity to do anything, so it may as well be musical. Another thing is you want to be prepared for beginner students, right? So the first lesson's really intense, right? So the way I feel when I watch Jacob Collier talk about harmony is the way a student feels on their first lesson when they come in, and it's just a huge fire hose of information, and they got to try and take in as much as possible. So that means you want to have stuff like chord diagrams, or at least the sheets where you can quickly fill in the dots, ready, right? You want to have a whole bunch of single string riffs ready, all tabbed out. And you want to make sure the student can read the diagrams or the tab themselves, because what's going to happen a lot of the time is they'll kind of be able to play something recognizable at the end of the lesson. They'll go home, they'll not play guitar that day because they've done all the guitar for the day. Next day they'll do something else, they'll forget about it. Third day they'll play Xbox. Fifth day they'll go, oh shit, I should play some guitar, and they'll have forgotten how to play it, and then they won't be able to read the tab, and they'll come back to their next lesson with no progress. So you need to make sure you have the material written out and that the student can understand it by the end of the lesson. Again, this is another reason to simplify things. Like if the riffs are on one string, it doesn't matter if they can tune the guitar or not, and it's easier to read the tab. Right. Then another thing is you want to basically, they're going to do lots of things terribly wrong, right, in terms of technique and probably in terms of theory as well. They'll call things the wrong name, whatever. And each student has a certain appetite and tolerance for being corrected. And if you give someone a million rules, you say don't do this, do that, don't do this, do that, they're only going to remember so many of them. So you want to try and don't be too pushy, right? They're not going to do everything perfect. They're not going to do anything perfectly. But they may do stuff like reach over the top with the thumb. That one you really do want to nip in the bud, right? You want to stop them doing that. They may well only be able to use one finger at a time. I think that's tolerable for lesson one, but you try and move them on gently to using more one at a time. And I guess in terms of long-term planning, a really useful idea is to make sure that the material they learn in each lesson moves smoothly into the next one. So you might teach them an arrangement of some chords. It's a simple pop song. What would be really cool is if the next song you teach them, it's just one more chord. It's not 4 new chords, right? And that takes a little bit of time. You've got to kind of build a teaching repertoire of songs to make sure that you can do that. But that you're introducing material gradually, and that lets them feel like they've made real progress. When you hand them their next piece of material and they go, oh, I can do most of this, it's just this little bit more. Yeah, I guess those would be my main tips, and the video is less than 10 minutes long, so it shouldn't have been too arduous to sit through. Thank you.